Whether it's the waterfalls, the meteor showers, or the beautiful sunsets, more than 400 million visitors enjoy the beauty of the national parks each year. Park rangers are steadfast guardians of the national parks, ensuring their beauty and secrets are preserved. But what happens when those tasked with park protection are suddenly consumed by the very land they safeguard? 3 rangers, familiar with almost every trail and tree, vanished. How did 3 expert park rangers disappear? Today, we'll look into their stories. Backcountry Ranger Randy Morganson knew Kings Canyon National Park better than almost anybody. The wildflower meadows had always brought joy to the 54-year-old. But in the summer of 1996, everything turned sour. Morganson, a deeply tanned romantic with a bushy beard, had an affair with another ranger, and his marriage and professional relationships suffered for it. In July, from his remote outpost near Bench Lake, Morganson arranged to return unsigned divorce papers to his wife, Judy, because he wanted to work it out. But shortly afterward, he radioed 2 fellow rangers and said he wouldn't bother them anymore. The following day, he tacked a note to his cabin door, saying he'd be back in 3 or 4 days, and left on patrol. It was his 28th season in the park. He never made it back. For 10 days after the ranger was declared missing, searchers used dog teams, thermal vision-equipped helicopters, and nearly 100 people on the ground to scour cliff bases, creeks, and rocky ravines. They found nothing. Despite a massive effort to piece together what had happened, it seems no one but Randy will ever know. Hunters, hikers, and even planes have gone missing for decades in the Sierra, but the sudden disappearance of such an experienced ranger seemed odd. Was it a carefully planned suicide? Was there an accident? Or had he run into the wrong person? Most believed the least troubling option and assumed that Morganson had simply had an accident, damaging his radio, and then died alone deep within Kings Canyon. In July 2001, 5 years after the search was called off, a trail worker found bones along a creek in the Window Peak drainage. Rangers then discovered a tattered shirt with Morganson's badge, a 2-way radio switched on, and a backpack with the waist belt buckled, meaning it had probably never been removed. It seemed that he had fallen through a snow bridge and broken his leg, and his body had simply been hidden beneath ice throughout the search. But finding the bones proved only that Randy had died in the park, not how it occurred. I don't think it was an accident, says Eric Blem, author of The Last Season. He wrote a book that traces the investigation into the park ranger's disappearance. Blem says Randy may have wanted to appear to have died on the job to make sure Judy, his wife, got her $100,000 benefit from the government, a policy not honored in the case of suicide. If he wanted to throw off the dogs or sucker people into believing something happened, he did a great job, Blem says. After so many years with the bones gnawed, there's no way to say exactly what happened. In 2005, Rocky Mountain National Park Ranger Jeff Christensen went missing. July 29th began like any other day for Jeff. That morning, a coworker dropped him off at Chapin Pass Trailhead at 11 a.m. so he could begin his day-long patrol. As an experienced and fit ranger, he set off with the enthusiasm of someone who truly loved his job. Those who encountered him on the trail suggested he was in high spirits, moving nimbly across the rugged terrain. But what happened in the hours that followed remains shrouded in uncertainty. One thing is certain, Jeff never returned. Christensen's disappearance prompted a manhunt of 200 searchers, rescue dogs, and helicopters. One of the largest and longest search efforts park employees can remember. Despite the intensive search efforts, it would take 8 long days before a hiker would stumble upon Jeff's body. He was believed to have met his end after a fatal fall in the treacherous basin between Ypsilon Mountain and Mount Chiquita. The exact circumstances of his accident, still unknown. Anyone who's hiked in high-elevation terrain knows the things that can go wrong, said park spokeswoman Kyle Patterson. It could be a loose rock. He could have lost his balance or stubbed his toe. It could have been a shoelace. We'll never know. Those kind of areas are extremely unforgiving if you fall. In a heartfelt tribute, a memorial service was held with a final radio broadcast for Jeff. As the transmission declared, Ranger 233 out of service. It was a solemn reminder of the unpredictability of nature and the brave souls who dedicate their lives to preserving it, sometimes paying the ultimate price. Paul Fugate was a park ranger at the Chiricahua National Monument in southeastern Arizona until he disappeared on January 13, 1980. Paul was last seen around 2 p.m. that Sunday in 1980 when he stopped out of the visitor center in Chiricahua National Monument in southeastern Arizona. He was wearing his standard Park Service uniform, as well as Red Wing boots, and carrying a green down parka. "I'm going to do a trail," he announced to an aide. He let her know that if he wasn't back by 4:30, she should close up without him. That was the last time anyone would ever see Paul Fugate alive. Paul was 41 years old at the time of his disappearance. He had a Texas twang, blue eyes, a woolly brown beard, and a ponytail that ran to his shoulders. He was a monument naturalist who answered visitors' questions, curated exhibits, and put together trail guides and plant lists. He was also known to smoke a joint when the mood struck him, and he chafed under the button-down Park Service of that era. He had been fired from the monument once before, but successfully sued to get his job back, to no one's great pleasure, not even really his own. But Paul loved the mountains as much as he despised bureaucracy. For all the monument's hideouts, there were only so many areas one would normally patrol. There was one 8-mile-long road that led to a dead end, a single campground, and a system of trails that could be hiked in a single day. Paul didn't bother taking his radio, ID, or billfold, or $300 worth of cash and checks. He didn't even take his trusty pocket glass for examining plants, and he was never seen again. That weekend he had a house guest visiting, and when he didn't return after dark, she grew concerned. About 8 p.m., she notified the monument superintendent, who rounded up 2 colleagues and set out with a flashlight, trudging through the surrounding canyons, calling Paul's name the whole way. They found no sign of him. The next morning, the superintendent contacted the Cochise County Sheriff's Office, which sent in a search and rescue team, putting a total of 22 men and women on the ground, plus 1 dog. By Tuesday afternoon, the National Guard had a helicopter overhead, and 16 volunteers from the Southern Arizona Rescue Association bedded down at the visitor center. They scrambled over rocky ridges and rappelled into the impassable Organ Pipe Formation. Moving in a long line, like a string of Boy Scouts cleaning up a campground, they scoured mostly everything within 1.5 miles of the visitor center. The official search effort lasted just over 2 weeks. But Dodie Fugate, Paul's wife, marshaled groups of volunteers, who over the next several years walked the trails, checked abandoned mines, and otherwise hunted for traces of the missing ranger. Dodie and the volunteers held benefit concerts and badgered Arizona Senator Barry Goldwater to get involved. Purported Fugate sightings trickled in from around the country. One turned out to be a mentally disabled man in New Mexico, another a shrimp fisherman in the Florida Keys. None of the tips panned out. Paul failed to turn up either dead or alive, and he remains the only Park Service ranger to go missing and never be accounted for. "Everybody who's in this family is in pain, and will be until we find Paul," Dodie Fugate said about his disappearance. She says the search for her husband has become a search for closure that's now lasted more than 40 years. "I feel as though a part of me has just been sliced off," Dodie said, "and I want to know where it went." As for what happened the day he disappeared, Dodie and others suspect foul play. Paul disappeared in an area linked to drug trafficking, leading some to theorize that he ran into the wrong group that day. The complicated case has many questions, but still no answers. Dodie is raising money to hire a private investigator, hoping to push this case closer to clarity. "Paul and I were sort of like 2 halves of one person," she said, "and so the other half of me is buried somewhere." This remains an open case for National Park Service investigators with a $60,000 reward for information. Call the Cochise County Sheriff's Office at 520-432-9500 or 800-362-0812, or call or text the National Park Service Investigative Services ISB tip line at 888-653-0009 with any information you think may help. Rest in peace, Randy Morganson and Jeff Christensen, and may Paul Fugate one day be found.